All right. Yeah. Okay. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. I am just, it's kind of one of those mornings. Just getting
Those mornings
stuff
happen.
together. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let me move over my stuff in the proper direction. That. I will put this back there.
It's hard being host, producer, director, and technician all at the same time, isn't it? You've got a big job.
A little challenging. Okay, so let me just see if I can pull that over to this. Yeah. Okay. You have a bunch of tags too that I want to be able to get to.
Okay.
Okay, so I have those, and I guess I'll put them here. Put that up here. Okay, I think I'm getting it together, John.
I believe it. I think you already had it together.
Oh,
You're being a little hard on yourself.
yeah, I don't know why this morning I woke up, I was like, overslept, and then my eyes didn't really work.
The older I get, the more mornings I have like that.
And it's raining, so it
Yeah.
has this, feeling like
Yeah.
you don't really want to do a lot,
I don't think about you getting rain where you are, but we're getting we're cold and rainy up in Sacramento, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
not supposed to rain in Southern California, is it?
no, the last week has been raining, and it's cold.
Yeah. Well, it's no longer something we can predict, is it?
No, it is not. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is JOHN ARMATO, and we hooked up again, like actually in person, a few months back. He happened to be at this restaurant that I work at on Saturdays,
Yeah.
and yeah, we got into a conversation. It's like, oh yeah, okay.
I enjoyed that so much, Kathy, because I think we had become Facebook friends through a mutual friend, Stacy Griesbach. And I think that's how we first connected on Facebook.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was down in July and went to Jinkies with a friend, and you were playing, and it was just, the music was great. And then you were gracious to spend a few minutes, and we had a nice chat, and I just really enjoyed it. And so It's lovely being with you.
It's great. Yeah, and if you're a singer, you gotta love the moniker "The Drummer Loves Ballads." I mean, that's kind of like a no-brainer, right?
It's funny when I that idea had been in my mind for a really long time, and my day job, my professional career has been in communications, public relations, marketing communications, and I do a lot of brand communications kind of work. But I never really thought about the power of that as a brand. But once I started talking about the Drummer Loves Ballads as the album title and as the concept, boy, it really stuck for people as this thing, this identifier. And I'm proud to be the drummer who loves ballads because it's absolutely part of my DNA.
That's great. So did that just you just I mean it's not that difficult of a name, but still to recognize the name and say, I think I'm going to use that. Was it first for the record?
Yeah, I literally had the idea for an album of that title for about 40 years because the origin story of the album, which was released in 2021, goes back about 40 years prior to that. And when I was playing, my first little jam sessions around Kansas City where I grew up and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this session leader, we're playing all these typical jam session stuff, burning through Cherokee and 32 sax players taking 32 courses each and, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a little break. Session leader turns to those of us playing at the moment and says, what do you guys want to play next? And I said, how about a ballad? And he looked at me like I was just insane. Like, dude, I'm trying to run a jam session here and the drummer loves ballads. Are you kidding me? And it wasn't long after that, just, as I reflected on that whole experience, I thought, that'd be a good album project title someday. And I kind of carried that around for 40 years. And so there was only one title ever for this album, and it came to me 40 years ago.
That's funny.
Yeah. The album starts with a voiceover over drums of me telling that story of that moment that this all sort of coalesced and drove the concept.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, I interviewed Alan Broadbent this week or last week.
I saw that you had. I didn't catch it, but I saw that he was on your roster. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
He was really nice to speak with, and an old guy, and it's like there's not a huge amount of old guys left, from the days before that were very. I don't know. My remembrance of those days is very, what's the word? I don't know. For lack of the real word, I'll say focused. I really remember those days because, I was young. It was here in LA mostly,
Yeah.
I had expanded my horizons, because I grew up with a father who played sax.
Okay.
I grew up in that whole thing, and my father introduced me to a lot of jazz, but, and then I went to Berkeley, and so I kept furthering my vision. But then when I got out here, I was really ensconced in the jazz community. But at that time, as you know, this was 76, 77. It was a very different community, yeah, and the playing and the playing was different. The clubs were different, right?
Yeah.
And so it's always nice to talk to an old guy.
Yeah, I get it. This is going to sound like I'm pandering, but I mean it so sincerely. I think what you're doing is a genuine service
Oh, thank
to
you.
the jazz community, and because these stories will get lost otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's important, I think, to understand the people as well as the music that they made. And I have probably a little bit of a you kids get off my lawn sort of mentality as I get older, get a little bit curmudgeonly. But I think so much of what younger people encounter in terms of their coming up is the hot new burner on TikTok or on YouTube or whatever, and the quick tips for success and
Yeah.
the chops and the shortcuts and all that. And now, I should balance this by saying I absolutely adore so many young talents, and there are amazing things happening with people who are taking a good path forward in the music. But to pause, reflect, really have the deep conversations with the elder statesmen, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think that's a real important part of the tradition. And look, I'm a little intimidated by the names you have on your roster of the past interviews. You've talked to some wonderful people.
Well, I mean, it's all over the map who I've talked to, you know, people who really, you know, but one thing that the thing that ties everybody in that I love is that we're all making it work. What did I read? I was watching, hold on one second.
Yeah.
I was watching a TED Talk.
Mm.
And the person came up with this really well. What he said was, making art gives you agency in a world where we have little control.
Cathy, I think you posted that on Facebook recently,
I
didn't you?
did.
Because I'm so glad you brought that up. It really, there's a lot of that sort of stuff floating around. I ran across that on your post, and it really spoke to me. And I kind of filed that away. I think that is deeply true. And I think without getting into contentious points of view, we're in an era of, serious uncertainty on all kinds of fronts.
Yeah.
And, one of the things I've been reflecting a lot on is there's a whole lot of the world I can't control or influence. I do what I can, but we all have our limitations of our reach. So how do I keep my sanity? Through the things that are in my little sphere. And when we create, we're exerting agency. I thought that was a really, really powerful, insightful observation. I've thought about a lot since I saw that just the other day.
Yeah, and especially the second half, creativity is our power to enact change, to what you just said. And artists bring order to the chaos. And that's actually, I think, like a common ground that everybody, all the artists I've interviewed have. I said it many times over the last few years. It's like I really, first of all, I'm really impressed that there are so many creative people,
Mm-hmm.
because they would have us believe that there aren't.
Right. Yeah.
And it's and as this person said, it's like you can be looked at as weird, strange, bad, if you're creating. And he's a writer, he's a poet, I guess. And he said I tell people, just be messy.
Yeah.
It's okay to be messy, And I often felt like we are actually keeping the planet spinning. If we weren't here, it would just be a ball of dust.
Yeah, I think there's so much truth to that. I love this format because you've already got I've got like three different thoughts going on at the same time. There's during the pandemic, I remember a variety of people making the observation of, look what people are turning to as the world around them shuts down. They're watching movies and they're reading more books and they're listening to music. And, if you think the arts are frivolous or dispensable, okay, everybody, go a month. No TV, no movies, no books, no poetry, no music, no theater, no dance, no sculpture, no painting. You will suddenly realize how indispensable art is to culture and our own sanity and our own sense of joy and those sorts of things. So I think that's abundantly true. A parallel that you spur in my mind to my career. So I spent about 30 years at an international communications consultancy, public relations agency, and that's been the bulk of my work. I'm currently self-employed as a communications consultant as well. But for the bulk of that time, I was a creative strategist, and one of my jobs was to help build programs for clients and determine the insight that would be most compelling for audiences, et cetera. And working as a creative in sort of the professional and business world, as well as sort of a free creative in my music life and other worlds, I really started to think about what do these things have in common. And it's dangerous to try and define art, and there's a lot of different opinions about that. But one of the things that I think creative people have in common, or a common thread in all this work, is I think we're meaning makers. We look at the chaos and look for a way to make sense out of it somehow. And sometimes it's actually the disturbing chaos and searching for meaning that will sort of give us a balm, if you will. But then other times I think it's just like, well, what is this stuff that I'm fascinated by all about? Or what does it have in common? The Drummer Loves Ballads was a little bit of that for me. It's like, how do I make sense out of these feelings I have and this music I love and tie it all together into a meaningful whole? I think that idea of being meaning makers is something that a lot of artists would see themselves in.
Yeah, I believe it. And even if they don't specifically spell it out like that, I think that is true. I think of just like writing, for instance, writing music.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you really are on the, in the artistic universe, there's this, it's kind of an urge, right? It's an urge to pull it together
Mm-hmm.
into, as you say, a meaning, and it's pulling it together. So there is this kind of dispersal or chaos,
Yeah.
And then when you get it, it's so real and so effective
Yeah.
that you even can't deny it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious if you've had this experience, but I think we all start with a vision of whatever project or tune or album or whatever it may be. And we want to bring that vision to life. But then somewhere along the line, it takes on its own life. And we get to the culmination of saying, go like, okay, for me, my album's like this. It's like, that was the album I wanted to make. And it was so much more than the album I wanted to make. It became something that I hadn't anticipated, and so there's this moment where the idea almost takes over. It's very gratifying to be able to look at something like, yeah, that's not only kind of where I wanted to go, but I also got to go along for the ride, and it took me someplace on its own,
Yeah, that's a very subtle observation, but that's very true. Very true. And I don't know about you, but especially now, I keep trying to let go
Yeah.
of my, you know, control, you could say, um, because, well, I realized a few years back that to me, just from my own point of view, that I was a control freak. And I never, ever dreamed that I
Yeah.
would say that. But it turned out like I had strong opinions about what should happen or, the quality. It's not to say that I was like that all the time or that other, situations didn't arise where I wasn't controlling and I knew it. But overall, I felt like that, like I was trying to steer the boat.
Yeah.
And if you're on a rushing stream, maybe a little bit of steering, but you just got to go along with the stream. And
Yeah.
I think more and more, I think I hear people talking about that a lot, letting go and
Yeah.
trusting the however you want to put the power that's rushing
Right.
through
Right.
you.
I listen, I can relate. I mean, I'm very self-aware. I know my tendency is to be very uptight, very controlling, very sort of OCD oriented, and that's at odds with my creative impulses a lot of times.
Right.
And when I reflect on having now the benefit of 61 years, I'm getting to the point where I can reflect on that sort of thing, and I can see the moments where it's been integral to me accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. People benefit from you as a leader or whomever having a vision or knowing where you want to go, and it motivates me. But then I can also think of all those times, maybe as many or more, where it held me back, got in the way of, sometimes even enjoying the moment, because when we're like that, speaking for myself anyway, we can go way deep inside our heads. I remember Steve Gadd, the great drummer, in an interview once said something about his early studio days, the importance of like avoiding the head game. He's like, man, you can't get inside your head. That's a dangerous place. Your brain's trying to kill you. Like that's a bad neighborhood. You don't want to go in there. And it's true. Yeah, you gotta let go. There was a moment, not to always bring it back to the album, but you're spurring different stories. I had wanted to do Poinciana on the album, and it is on the album, but my original plan was to do it not as the famous Ahmad Jamal, Vernel Fournier, that classic beat that Fournier created for that, which no one else is ever going to be able to do the same way. But I was going to do a different sort of Latin infused sort of take on it. And it just wasn't going well. I mean, it wasn't laying down well for the quartet, and it didn't feel as good as I thought it might. And I had that moment where I'm like, no, but I want to make this work. This was my plan. And thanks in part, I think, to my producer and buddy, John Cushan, who was indispensable in this whole journey, we rather quickly got to, okay, this just isn't working. And so we just killed it. And I was prepared for just to not be on the album. Then the next day, I actually don't remember if it was John or myself, but it's like, what if we did this as a shuffle? Which I don't remember ever hearing Poinciana as a shuffle. And we experimented a little bit, and it just suddenly felt different, and it flowed naturally. We let go, and that's where it took us, and that's what ended up on the album. But boy, there was a moment there, where it wasn't easy for me to let the tune go, and then it wasn't easy for me to let a different vision take over, but it was so much better for having done that.
I know exactly what you mean. I've had that a lot on recording in various ways. One particular way was I made a really beautiful record with Josh Nelson on piano and Larry Koontz on guitar.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful musical relationship, which it's kind of tender and exploratory. We trust each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we can.
You're okay with space?
Yeah, space and phrasing and so we thought we thought we really should have a swing tune on this record because we all swing and so we took out September in the Rain.
Oh yeah.
And we tried it swing and it was so wrong for the project. It was like no.
Yeah.
And so we all collectively let go, and what came out was perfect for the project. It was different. It was it had the qualities that the other songs had, which was light and magical and really beautiful. So I've had that, but also in a lot of different ways. Like I've been a producer a lot in the studio. And so for others, and I use engineers who have strong opinions, and I like them because they're quality and they're musicians, and I like getting their input. But there were times when I had to let go of my expectations, especially because when you work with people who do a great job at what they do, it's like the tribe idea. It's like, yeah, give it to him. He knows that part. Let him take it, Then you can have an opinion about what happens, but let him take it.
Yeah.
So I've had those kind of things, and also just singing myself in the studio, like, I mean, gosh, we could go on and on about this, allowing things to happen, not holding on to the, expectations or that thinking, know.
I think I learned all kinds of lessons doing this project, and there were things that I would approach a little bit differently. But I think the one thing I really did right, perhaps accidentally, is I was really, really prepared. So this is my first time recording as a leader. As a first full-length project I'd done. Now I've done other studio just work, some demos and some other people's projects and that sort of thing. But this was mine, full-length project. And, you know, I come by insecurity naturally. You know, that's always haunting, perhaps all of us. So I prepared intensively. I had a definitive playlist with alternates, assuming some things wouldn't work out. I had charted out roadmaps for each of the tunes. I knew the concept was there's a core quartet, but then we brought in, there's actually 28 musicians on the project. So each track has a different featured artist. Some of it, we've got orchestral backgrounds or winds, but the quartet is always consistent part of it. And I wanted each member of the quartet to be featured. So there's a piano feature and a guitar feature and a bass feature and a drum feature. And I had in mind who I wanted to take each piece and all that. So I went in, and there was a moment where I realized I could have been sort of dictatorial, like this is how I want it. But then I'm looking at these guys that I brought in who were, we did this primarily in Kansas City, and these were mostly players that I'd sort of come up with in the 80s, and mostly senior to me, people I really admired who were just brilliant A-list players. And I'm like, why on earth would I bring them in to tell them what to do? You know, so I said, okay, guys, here's the roadmap I have in mind, but you tell me, you know, let's do this. And you played Make Me Rainbows at the start of the show. And that was the first tune we recorded in the studio. Wayne Hawkins is the pianist on that. And he immediately said, and he knew it was, you know, the tune I wanted to feature him on. He's like, I think the roadmap we've got's a little bit boring. I think we can do a more intro. Let's try this for the intro and for the outro. And I'm like, yeah, let's absolutely do it. And it was just great. I think we did 2 takes. I think it's the second take that ended up on the album. We didn't overwork this stuff. We didn't overchurn, just a couple takes each. But I reflect on that with pride because I know how easy it'd be for me to like grab on tight and instead back to let go. I was like, okay, Wayne, where do you want to take this? It's your tune. Let's build this around your vision for it. And it sure paid off.
Yeah, it's a great lesson. It's a great lesson in life, you know.
Yeah.
That you know, it touches on everything in life, right? You know, and no
Well, you're
matter
right. I mean, that's the things I'm trying to learn that I've been trying to learn my whole life. You know, tend to transcend one discipline or the other. I think you're right. I think that's a life lesson, not just a music lesson. I don't know if you're into mindfulness practices or meditation or anything, but
yes, I am very
okay.
much so.
Okay.
And every day I listen to things and I work on things every single day.
That's wonderful. I've been trying to meditate a lot over recent years. I don't quite have a daily practice like I'd like to, but it's been really good for me and really meaningful. And I remember listening to, I think this was maybe Joseph Goldstein, who's a very well-respected meditation teacher. It may have been somebody else, but they were talking about the stories we tell ourselves are, you know, the second way we wound ourselves. They call it the second arrow. The first arrow is the incident that hurts, and the second arrow is when we tell ourselves a story about that incident, you know. And so this particular teacher was saying, when you feel yourself start to say, this is messed up, this is disrespectful, this is incompetent, whatever, stop the sentence early and just say, this is. Don't tell yourself a story about it.
That's nice.
Just acknowledge it as with a distance.
Yeah.
This thing is happening and observe it rather than get in the middle of it, take offense, and tell yourself a story about it. And that was certainly happening. Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
Love that.
Instead of this is, tell yourself a story. Yeah. This is period.
Yeah.
And that was a part of what was sort of percolating in our studio sessions. And I think those sessions, I think everybody really felt good about them. We had history, we had friendship and relationship. And I think that allowed us to say, okay, well, this is Poinciana not working. So we'll move on. No judgment. We'll move on. Wayne's going to do this a little bit differently. That's great. And I was so happy that we had those kind of relationships you're describing that allowed us to do that.
Yeah, I love that. You know, sometimes I forget who I followed about this, but um, someone said if you find yourself in judgment, refocus your attention on breath.
Yeah,
And that really works. You know, I could be sitting there listening to somebody and judging, and then I would just refocus myself on my own breath, and the judgment would go away, which is
yeah.
extremely helpful, you
It
know.
is. It is very helpful. Yeah, when I do my practice, it's usually a combination of meditation and breath work, and just getting in touch with the breath. I think that's powerful. I completely agree.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I wrote this little book. I was looking around for it, but I don't know what I did. Oh, here it is. During the pandemic, The Act of Becoming.
Oh,
It's, you
I
know, it's
wasn't aware
not
of that. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like a fabulous book or anything. I would have to really spend some more time, which for me, you know, my attention, I'm a Gemini, you know, so a
Now,
lot of
see,
stuff.
you just offended the person who read it and thought it was a fabulous book, and now you're questioning their judgment.
Well, I don't think it was that well written. I think the idea and the concept is
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
And what it is that over teaching for many years, I would see the exact same lesson come up in the teaching of voice technique,
Mm,
singing jazz, and life. The exact same lesson. So I wrote that down, you know, and uh, I did realize too after I had done it that I could really kind of go deeper in and apply that to any area
hmm
that touches my life, any area at all, cleaning the toilet or
hmm
whatever, you know.
Yeah,
And so, but yeah, the the same lesson. I always say that I feel blessed that I'm a musician and I have music to actually teach me about life, you know, over
that's
the
well
years.
said. I love that. You
Fantastic.
know, one of the things I've observed, and others before me have observed, but I think it's true, that seems to be consistent across creative people, take that however you want, is they seem to instinctively be interested in movies and books and travel and other disciplines, and they soak up knowledge from a variety of areas. I remember when I was a freshman in college, I got into a humanities cluster course where they sort of cross-taught philosophy and history and literature from the same period. So, like, what was going on, that how it affected the politics of the age as well as the literature of the age and the art of the age and that sort of thing. And I just was so in love with that idea, and my entire life and career I've been fascinated by knowledge transfer. How does this idea over here relate to this? And I remember early on realizing, so my dad was a career educator. He was a junior high school counselor, but his whole life he also was a watercolor artist, and he was not a musician at all. But I would notice as he's talking about his painting, sometimes he'd talk about rhythm and composition and
Interesting.
tones and this
Yeah.
sort of thing. And then maybe a dancer, and they're talking about some of these sorts of things, and a writer of literature might be talking. It's like these concepts have a lot of overlap. There's a lot of just basic conceptual commonality
Yeah.
between different disciplines, and I'm fascinated by that knowledge transfer, that commonality, that crossover. And I think that creative people can draw from all these different experiences they have and repackage them in that creation that they're working on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. I, yeah, I just I think things like that, ideas about that kind of thing, just I don't know, they feed me like crazy. And I know not everybody is interested or whatever. They're at a different spot in their life, or you know, I mean, I don't want to judge where people's consciousness is. And we're all on our own road, right?
Right, right.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things, another sort of lesson I think I took away from this project was, and I was asked to write some things for some publications about lessons I learned, whatever. And one of the things I focus on was the importance of creating with vulnerability, but sharing with conviction. And what I mean by that is when we're creating, and this may be, some people may disagree with this. I create for an audience of one, for me, because there's this thing that I want to express or an idea I want to explore or whatever the case is. And when you've got a very particular impulse like that, that's very personal, and you're genuinely trying to make yourself happy in getting this out there, well, that can be vulnerable because people may judge that. But I think that that's how you get to the good stuff. And so I create for myself. But then when you share it, when you market the album or you do the interviews or whatever, you have to market and share with conviction because you can't let the differing opinions coming in shake your faith in what that original impulse was or make you second guess if it had value or not. And the way I've come to think about it is, I created an album. This is advice I first heard as a writer, which is, write the book that you'd want to read. What's missing on the shelf that you wish you had, and if no one else has done that, then you do that. Fill that gap. This was an album that I wanted to be able to listen to, and if somebody else doesn't think I did it well or they don't care for it, that's cool. Their task is to go create the thing that's missing for them. And you just got to have the conviction that this was the only choice you really had, because as soon as you start creating it for other people, now it's a product and not a piece of art. And that's fine. If you're going to create a product, take a survey and give people what they ask for. But that's not how I wanted to do an album.
Well, that touches on lots of truths for me. Yeah. I mean, even in just performing itself, I always lead my students into the thought that, you know, you're actually telling the story to yourself.
Mm,
Anything, like my oh, let's take body and soul. My heart is sad and lonely. For you I cry. For you, dear only. Now, some people might, be really directing it to somebody outside of themselves, but that to me doesn't. It doesn't create what you were touching on. And if I'm talking to myself, you know, my heart is sad and lonely. For you, I still know I'm talking about this person. For you I cry, but it's a lot more personal. It's in my space. For you I cry. For you, dear only. I mean, I'm carrying that weight, that
yeah,
way. And um, and it I think that's a really good thing. It's for various reasons. It connects you more and affects the listener more, and you're kind of working out the message for
I think
yourself,
I
you
think
know?
that's very true. I think people want to know. I think we all want to know we're not alone.
Oh, yeah.
And when a performer lets us in,
Yeah.
we can go, "Oh, you too? Oh, yeah, yeah, me too. That's the way I feel." And we're not sort of being spoken at; we're being invited in. I
Yeah.
think that for me, I find that very powerful. That's where my emotion as an audience member comes in. Is like, "Oh, okay, I'm not alone in that. I get that." Yeah,
I agree. Totally. Yeah. That's that's when it's the most powerful. And I have this idea too that is right along those lines, that there's as a performer, I mean, of course, I'm talking to singers mostly. There's three universes. The first universe is me. So I have to have all my shit together in that universe. I have to have a voice and know
yeah,
the words and, all of that. And then the second universe is an expansion. It's that, and then it expands to the musicians. So now in this universe, there's me and the musicians. That's why I can make a mistake,
hmm
and it doesn't have to be a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Because we're in this universe together, and we observe and experience and create. The third universe expands to the audience. And so the audience is actually sharing the first and second universe, right? But sometimes performers go to the third universe first, as you said, selling a product or creating a product, which is okay if that's what you want to do,
Right. Right.
but um, but I think a more fulfilling way is to do it that way.
Yeah, you just, I'm loving this conversation because you help me connect the dots and you spur all kinds of thinking. So the first thing I'll say about that is one of the things I do, again, in the day job is a lot of presentation coaching with executives who are giving, whether it's keynotes or business presentations, town hall meetings, whatever. And I had an executive a while back um, talk about how much, he really needs the energy of his audience to fuel him, and that's when he really feels like he's able to present well. And I said, but you can't count on that. And you have an obligation to be as consistently high performing as you can be. And not every audience is going to give you that energy that you are wanting. And they're certainly not going to give it to you from the beginning. That's a little bit of an abdication of responsibility. You've got to bring the energy first. You got to give them a reason to give you some energy back. And you can't count on the audience to fill your tank every time. So you gotta be prepared to figure out what you personally are feeling passionately about in this presentation, this speech, this keynote. That's what you owe them. The audience doesn't owe you anything. You owe them your passion, and you got to flip that script. So I'm going to probably steal your 3 universes in my future
That's
sessions.
okay. I like to share that idea. It's great.
I like that. The other thing is you remind me of a really great lesson. I just love this from Jeff Hamilton, the great drummer. And it makes me think, I'm going to steal your analogy again. I think there are musicians who get stuck in the first universe. I mean, and we need that in order to be good, right? But we got to get to the second and to the third. But he tells a story about early in his career. Well, let me back up. This was in a drum clinic, and somebody was asking him how he deals with nerves. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, a mentor of mine, and I wish somebody in your audience may know who his mentor was and told him this. I don't recall, but somebody told Jeff, nervousness is selfishness. Because what it means is you're spending all your time listening to yourself. You're monitoring your playing. All your attention is on you. And you're worried if you're doing it right. Am I impressing people? Did I play the right lick? How's my time? How's my groove? How's my swing? Whatever. And as soon as you go to the second universe, pay attention to the rest of the musicians and think about, what do they need from me? How can I serve them? And what am I hearing? Just be attentive, be present, be listening. The nervousness will go away because you're no longer being selfish about it. And I've applied that to presentation skills training, that sort of thing as well. I'm a big believer in that. And I have found it incredibly helpful for myself because my mind will do the Steve Gadd thing. It'll turn inside and go into that bad neighborhood, and I'll just eat myself alive with self-monitoring and self-consciousness. And we got to flip those cameras out and pay attention to the other people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I've come across that point of view too, many, many times. And singers really get into that a lot. I mean, the instrument, we're talking, we're communicating.
Yeah, right. You are the instrument.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so much. But there's an idea that I've used, which is great. Basically, it's outflow, not inflow.
Mm,
So
mm,
when you're thinking about yourself, it's inflow.
mm. That's good. Yeah.
So outflow, it doesn't mean you don't listen. It means your attention, your focus is outside of yourself,
Yeah.
flowing out. As soon as you start thinking about what you're doing, or then you've lost. You're not in the moment. You're not in the
Yeah.
future moment.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing I have to train singers to do, to be in the future moment. First of all, not beat themselves up for what they just did, but be in the moment, but also, be in expectance of what is coming next.
Yeah.
And that way, it's like a magic wand, you know. I mean, especially like for scatting, for instance. That's thank you. My slave has come for with
Oh,
my coffee. Thank you so much.
nice. Well
Warm
done.
coffee.
Yeah.
So, yeah, um, um, what was
Well,
I?
you're talking about that, the inflow and the outflow, and
Yeah.
you got to something that reminds me of early on learning how to sight read in particular. And I haven't played much big band in recent years, but I used to love playing big band. There was a kind of a Kicks rehearsal band in Kansas City that I used to work with years and years ago that I really enjoyed. And especially in that kind of environment, you quickly learn that now is constantly over.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I had and I was taught this fairly young, but you have to kind of continually cultivate the skill, especially when you're in and out of reading ahead and taking in, certainly more than a note at a time, more than a bar at a time, more than a phrase at a time, but chunking it out in larger groups, but working to have your eye just a little bit in front of the phrase so that you know what's coming without getting lost so thoroughly in the moment. When you're always here, you're always behind.
Yeah.
You have to be a little bit ahead, and learning to just read a little bit ahead. It's both, I think, kind of partially a mindset, but also an actual tactical technique that we have
I
to
agree
learn.
with you. Yeah, I think it's both.
Yeah,
It's a head game.
yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely that, but you can also break it down to, yeah, it's specifically that. I have this class at Cal State Northridge, and there's five singers, and they're all pretty good, but they're inexperienced
yeah.
as far as how many years you have
Well,
to put
that's
in
where
and
we all
stuff.
begin, right?
Yeah, but one girl she's very bright. They had like a really great teacher, private teacher. I'm like the ensemble teacher,
Mm,
and so I speak how I'm speaking to you now. It's a little bit abstract. I've done that all my life. Whatever, why ever you want to say, I've done that. Big deal.
sure. Yeah.
It's how I speak, right?
Right.
I see what I see, images, and then I speak on that. So in my teaching, well, it's no different from what we're talking about, but some people need a different kind of communication. She really needs to have the details
Yeah.
and the technique. She wants, so she'll constantly kind of requalify what I've said. And it's interesting, to note. And because, I'll try and give her what she wants, but also I'll just reiterate what I said as well, because you can get it.
Yeah, it's such. I'm chuckling because I'm thinking about a specific experience I had with that. Uh, I tend to want to communicate conceptually as my front line as well, and I've had to cultivate the conceptual and sort of the concrete and bounce back and forth. But I was talking to my friend John Cushan, who served as producer on the album, and there was a tune where we were discussing in pre-production, and I'm like, I'm imagining, like it was actually for the tune uh, Shadows of Paris. Um, and I was talking about, I was imagining a violin solo, ended up being viola toward the end. And I'm like, I want it to be as if we're hearing this gypsy in the night in the midst and walking away from us. And, and I'm painting this picture. And he's like, so softer.
I knew you were going to say something like that. I've had that experience.
And he's like, man, you can't stand in front of a string section and tell them about the misty night. You got to give them musical direction. I'm like, I can give them both. And the thing
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and I think he has a good point. It's like, okay, all right, so legato and pianissimo, okay, fine,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
that works. Sure, let's talk that language. But I am convinced that now, and his point was, not everyone has the same shared experiences. They may not extract from your
yeah.
conceptual storytelling the same impressions that you have.
Right, right.
That's fair. On the other hand, I've come down on the side of giving people both. On the other
Yeah,
hand, I think that we should not underestimate the power of imagery and conceptual thinking to influence a performance. But yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, softer.
I've had that. But I do think both is nice
Yeah, yeah,
because you do want to. Actually, some of my charts, like the directions on top, I don't go on and on, of course, on the chart, but like I might say an ECM ballad.
yeah.
Hey,
I,
that gives you an idea, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. It's so funny. I'm sure probably everybody in your orbit and throughout our profession can relate to this. And they probably traded some of this before, but occasionally there's some musicians that will trade really weird style markings
Yeah.
that they see on charts. I'm trying to remember. One of my favorites was that I ran into was something like slutty floor tom. It's like it was supposed to be like a stripper type thing or whatever. I'm like, well, that's an interesting style indication, and I do know what you mean. So okay,
That's funny. Yeah, that's very funny.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, after all these years of working, because I've basically been basically been singing since I was 5.
yeah.
But after all these years, still at this time, I have to um, be open to what the instrumentalists will suggest,
Mm,
either feel or time or chords. Oh my God, that's not a minor 7 flat 5. That's a blah blah blah.
yeah, right.
And so, yeah, I mean, that kind of makes me giggle a little. Actually, it's just like, okay, you have to be open to it, but also, okay, I
Yeah,
got it, and
yeah,
it's not written in stone. It's
right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Um, uh, Now, one of the things I felt in your performance when I saw you in July is you have a calm confidence. You clearly are in charge of your performance and not waiting for the instrumentalist to tell you what to do. And
right.
that's one of the things that I don't have very many occasions where this comes up, but occasionally younger singers I will see sort of waiting for somebody else to uh, kick things off for them or whatever. And it's like, you're fronting the band at this moment. There was a woman in Kansas City that I used to love playing with. Her name's Julie Turner, wonderful jazz vocalist. And I remember early on the gig scene, I kind of came up in the 80s in Kansas City is when I started working professionally. And I worked with a variety of singers, and most of the time they'd let the piano player call the tune, count it off,
Yeah.
determine the style. Julie knew her key. Julie knew her tempos. She knew her styles. And when Julie sang, Julie was in charge. Okay, guys, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was not the norm, at least in the circles that I was traveling in, and I admired her ability to know what she wanted to do as a
Yeah.
musician in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I have this Dr. Craig Walker is on here, and he is making some comments, and he just said, "Bravo, yes."
Yeah, yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
Joyce. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Um,
interesting. This particular woman I'm talking about, Julie, her late husband, Tommy Ruskin, was a fabulous drummer, just one of the finest in the region. As a matter of fact, he was a bit of a mentor to Pat Metheny. And Pat has said in interviews over the years when asked about favorite musicians, whatever, he's like, there was this guy in Kansas City named Tommy Ruskin. He's like the best drummer I ever worked with, just made it so comfortable. But I always thought there was something about Julie and Tommy as a team. I think they sort of fueled each other's ability to see the other perspective and kind of take control over their music. They were a
yeah.
wonderful couple.
Is she still singing?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, she's in her 80s, I believe,
Oh,
and but occasionally we'll do something. She was a real talent. Yeah,
I have to look her up. Tell me
yeah.
about
Julie Turner.
her.
Mostly worked with her. There was a society big band in Kansas City the Steve Miller Orchestra, and there were two or three sort of big bookers and bands that did all the, the balls and the debutante things and the fundraisers and the society kinds of things. And the Steve Miller Orchestra was one I worked with for a number of years, and Julie sang with him a lot. And she just was always completely in command of her craft, and I always appreciated that about her.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that too. I mean, yeah, when somebody's professional and they know, they know their choices and they know how to let go and
Yeah.
then when to control, you know.
And there's a part of me that wonders, this is interesting. I'll have to, next time I have a chance to talk to Julie, I'll have to ask her about this. She came up, I think, she worked with a lot of different kinds of musicians in a lot of different settings, 50s, 60s, 70s, when there were still, steadies, you could do 5 nights a week or whatever, but worked with all kinds of players. And when you're a working, gigging musician working with a wide range of musicians, my guess is, a hypothesis, I should say, if you're a singer, you're really vulnerable to the musicians around you. And if you want to do, for all we know, of the way you want to do it, and they don't happen to call it that way, then you're out on a limb because you're out front and now it's on you. And there's a part of it that wonders if she didn't learn to take that control to avoid being put into some musical situations that weren't going to go well,
Well, that definitely happens. I mean, I even remember I was in Atlantic City with a band, and the drummer he was horrible.
Yeah.
I forget his name, but had something, it sounded like bashing, something, it's like, and that's exactly what he did. And there was a song that I wrote that he wanted to play the way he played it. And I literally didn't sing the song. I just stopped singing because I couldn't control him.
Yeah.
He wouldn't do what I wanted. So it was like, oh, great. You want to do that? Fine.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
So,
boy. You remember Gary Foster, the wonderful alto player?
yes.
So he grew up in around Leavenworth, Kansas, which is just across the state line from Kansas City, Missouri. And when I was at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, Gary came in and did some clinic work with the UMKC jazz band and that sort of thing. And I was, I'm going to tell a little story on myself. These were my early years, and I was still learning. I always tell people all knowledge begins in ignorance, right? That's where we all began. And we were rehearsing something in a big band setting. And it may have been a style that I hadn't gotten conversant in yet. I don't remember the details. I just remember Gary stopped the band. He turned around, looked at me, and says, when you play like that, it makes me want to not play.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, help me help you. What do you need from me? But yeah, I mean, Gary was a beautiful player, as you well know, and a gentle man. But boy, he was direct
Absolutely.
and honest, but he managed to do so in a way that wasn't. You didn't feel attacked. You didn't feel criticized. You just felt confronted with an objective truth that you had to deal with.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all right, I'll have to get that together, Gary.
I have so much more I want to talk about, but I want to play one of your songs and
Okay.
also step over to the bathroom. There's no nice way to say that. So
Yeah, well,
what
I may go
song?
off camera and take a break then as well while you do
Okay.
this. Yeah.
So I'd kind of like to hear Pensativa.
Poinciana?
Oh, Poinciana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd like to hear Pensativa too. That's a great tune. Well, let's cue up Poinciana. I'll go off camera. I'll meet you right back here as soon as we're both ready.
Okay, let's see. So here I see it, and we'll be right back.
I'm Sophie, and today we
And
have a special Black Friday promo.
Black
You can-
Friday promo, and here we go again. Now skip the ad, and here we are. Okay,
Perfect.
I'll see you in a minute.
All right.
That's a cool version.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
that's not exactly what I expected. Because when you said shuffle, it's almost like the bass player was playing like almost like a Latin thing, right?
Yeah, the whole thing just sort of emerged. So the what wasn't working the day before was my sort of straight,
Yeah.
it was a mallet Latin kind of thing. And so I was sort of fixated on like, what do I need to do differently? And we came up with the idea of the shuffle. We didn't really ask the rest of the quartet to do anything much different. And so you do get this sort of layered, to me, this whole tune is about layers, and you get these layered feels that I like. And I don't know how obvious it was to sort of the casual listener, but in the little drum solo portion of that, there's actually 3 takes going on, one on top of the other. So I keep the sticks going on the shuffle, and there's a layer of mallets on the toms, and then a layer of brushes. And that was inspired by, the Mingus tune, Self-Portrait in 3 Colors, on the album. And I love the way that tune just cycles through with one featured horn, and then it comes back around, and there's a second horn on top and a third horn on top of that. And originally we were going to sort of do that, build it gradually, and we just decided let's just have these layers all at once. But it was just, I wanted to try something that got at all of the different elements that I like in ballad work, and how do drums not just shout but sort of shimmer and whispered.
Yeah.
And I love mallets and I love brushes, and we said, we can just sort of make this thickly layered experience where all 3 of these are sort of playing against each other. So that's and then in my mind I just saw us walking in, out of frame in the movie as it fades, and we just faded it out. It was like this to me, the feel was just like sort of just gently walking, and we just walk off into the distance, and that's why we just sort of did the board fade there. But yeah, it was not at all what you might expect from Poinciana.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very distinctive, very unique. Yeah. It's nice.
And I want to mention the other players because they're all just fabulous. So I mentioned earlier Wayne Hawkins on piano, and he was originally from Kansas City. He now lives in upstate New York, and he's just a fabulous player. On guitar is a guy named Rod Fleeman, also from Kansas City. He was somebody that wrote a recommendation letter for Pat Metheny to get into Miami. They kind of were traveling their circles. He's older than Pat, and they had a great relationship. He's done a lot of national touring, a lot of recording. He works with Marilyn May will occasionally call him and say, "Can you come to Lincoln Center and do that show with me?" I mean, so he's that kind of player. And Gerald Spates on bass, exceptional player. And when we sat down to say, well, who do I want on the albums? Like, those are the guys, because I was really fortunate to get to play some stuff with them when I was coming up, and they were just players I admired. So, when you do your own project, you ask whoever you want to ask.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was really nice. While I had YouTube up, I saw that you interviewed Marilyn Scott.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, she, in the old days here, she was really working a lot.
Yeah, she was terrific to talk to. So I did about a half dozen video podcast interviews, I guess, for Easy Jazz FM, which is a streaming jazz station. And when I released my album, the founder of this, a guy named Corey Galbraith, was experimenting with some different offshoots for the station, and he came up with the idea of Easy Jazz Spotlight, which was a series of interviews. And so he had somebody interview me for the album. It was great. I really enjoyed it, and they were very kind to do that. but then he said, we thought you were a pretty good guest. You have a manner about you that we think you'd make a good host too. Would you mind doing some interviews for us? And so I did about a half dozen, and Marilyn was one of those. And I really enjoyed talking to her. Such a pro, great voice. I liked the projects of hers I listened to, works with great musicians, and a lot of history and interesting stories to tell.
Yeah. Yep. She's very cool. Yeah. My brother-in-law from my first marriage is a drummer who's known internationally. His name is Joey Heredia.
Okay.
And he worked with her a lot.
Yeah.
And I think he recorded her too at his home studio. But I haven't talked to her in years. It's been a long, long, long time.
I think she had a new release when I did that interview, and it was probably, I'm going to guess, maybe 3 years or so ago, something like that. So, she was pretty active still at that time. And a history of working with great drummers. I think Vinnie Colaiuta was on that project, or maybe it was the previous one, but yeah, terrific players.
Hey, so let's also talk about your jazz radio lists.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Thank you for bringing that up. That just by happenstance, we didn't plan this, but it just timed out that's launching literally this week.
Really?
Yeah, it's just brand new. The site just went live literally, I think, on Friday, and I'll be starting to do some marketing for it in the coming days here. But what this is, to the best of my knowledge, it is the most complete list of radio stations that program jazz around the world. And I've made them available for what I sort of refer to as DIY musicians, as I think a lot of people can relate who are in your audience. More and more, the sort of the label system, where a label would sign you and handle all the marketing and development and production and all that sort of stuff. Those days are more history than future, and musicians are left to predominantly sort of fend for themselves, do their own marketing, build their own audience, do their own solicitation. Now, there are great specialists in pitching airplay for jazz musicians. When I did my album, I wasn't really aware of who those people were, and I kind of made a rookie mistake in that I went with a general radio agency, and they weren't jazz specialists. And I got some good airplay, and I'm grateful to them and happy that I used them initially, but I knew I was missing out on other kinds of stations that I should be on. And so I started doing my own research on jazz stations, and I started doing my own pitching, and it gradually went well. I got lots of airplay that I wasn't getting otherwise. And then I had these lists. I'm like, well, I spent a ton of time and actually a ton of money pulling this together. I bet this would be useful for other musicians. And so over the past 4 years or so, I've annually engaged researchers around the world to actually do some research, update the lists. I worked with Scott Yanow a couple of years ago. He has a variety of different kinds of lists available. He was interested in mine. We worked out a deal, and he was making them available to musicians. But I've done a pretty massive, comprehensive update since then, and decided to see if this has any legs as an official business. So you can go to jazzradiolists.com, and you can buy lists by continent, depending on where you are in the world and which market is of most interest to you. And there's about 2,000 stations total around the world that I and researchers have identified, and it's the most comprehensive, most current list that I know of. Now, somebody may be able to prove me wrong, but when I was doing my research on this, I was constantly frustrated. I'd find a list of 40 stations here. I'd buy a list from a list company over here of 200 stations, and they were all out of date by the time I used them, blah, blah, blah. But if you can afford to hire a great specialist in jazz radio pitching, you should do it. It's the holy grail. It's the way to go. If you can't afford it, this is, I think, a great solution for people. And so I've gotten great feedback from people who've used them early on. They worked for me. And It's designed for the musician who wants to get heard, which is what we all want to, have happen. And I hope people go check it out. And Cathy, is a little bit of a surprise. Once I realized this was going to time out, I went to my web person. I said, could you give me a discount code for Cathy's listeners? So if anybody's interested, use this code CSG, your initials, 10.
Hold on 1 second. I mean, I already put it in, but I'm going to put that on CSG.
CSG 10 is the code. So if you want to buy any of the lists on the site, there's some bundled discounts and other discounts available on site. This will give you 10% off your total cart. So in addition to whatever bundle discounts are already offered on the site. But so all your friends and followers and listeners can benefit from your good name and goodwill, Cathy. And just pop in CSG10 at checkout and you'll get an additional 10% off. And I really would love to hear from people what they think of the site and if they use the list, how it goes for them. I'm pretty excited to get this going because I think this was a gap that I ran into that hopefully I can fill for other musicians.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So let's say I got a list and it has, so what can I expect? Does it have just the radio station?
So you're going to get an Excel spreadsheet that has, I forget the exact number of fields now, but you're going to get the station name. You're going to get, now this is all based on what's available. So not all 2,000-ish there are some empty fields for some because there's no data available. But all of them will have at least one email address that you can contact that's known as a programmer, a host, an announcer, music director who is responsible for programming the station. So you're going to get the station name, the frequency. There's a field that will tell you if it's terrestrial, satellite, streaming. You'll get where the data is available, what specializations they have. So some are just jazz, we know that, but some are like funk, Latin jazz, acid, bossa nova focus, whatever. So where we've got the subgenres that they most program, we include that. Contact email, contact name where we can get it. And it's most of them, we've got names, their title, physical address. So a handful of stations will occasionally say, yeah, I'm interested in what you sent me, but I want a CD. I ran into that in my outreach. And so the physical address is there. If they're affiliated with a larger network of stations, we'll show the ownership and that sort of thing. And then they're divided, as I said, into the 6 continents. Yes, I know there are 7 continents in the world, but there's only one radio station in Antarctica, and it doesn't play jazz and it doesn't take submissions. So, but so you get this Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
And you'll get a free user guide with any list purchase. And because one of the things I learned early on in exploring this initially is not all of us in the jazz world are comfortable using spreadsheets or knowing what to do with them or whatever. So I've got a user guide that tells you how to search and sort and filter, find what you're looking for. And then you kind of take it from there and decide, how you want to do your outreach. I've got a lot of information in the user guide helping people who may not be familiar with it understand list management apps and email campaign apps like Constant Contact or MailChimp and those sorts of things. By far a better way to go than just sending a blast email out of your inbox. But these are lists that you can then easily just upload to your Constant Contact account and put together your pitch and send it out. But yeah, that's what you get.
Cool. Do you have one for Spotify?
I don't. I haven't done any of the streaming services. These are all radio stations. And I think a lot of people have a lot of mixed feelings about Spotify these days as well.
I know.
Although, I'm one of those people, look, I mean, I'm not an A-lister. I did this passion project. Been really fortunate. The album got really strong critical reviews, and I got international airplay. And I look at my Spotify numbers or my Apple numbers, and they're not huge streaming numbers. But how can you not be a musician, look at your numbers and go like, there were like 3 people in Kuala Lumpur who listened to Make Me Rainbows last Saturday. That's cool, right?
I do have that experience. I get the Apple reports, and it's like, wow, okay, so since I have a bunch of different records, some records don't get played at all.
Right, right,
And
right.
then some get like one or two. And then, some of them, I mean, and it's just for the week. 27 people listen. To me, that's a lot.
I'm with
And
you.
all over wherever in the world. Berlin, really?
And that's the thing. I mean, I love it that I'm not alone in this. I'm sure this is the common experience, but it goes to sort of the premise of jazzradiolist.com. The main thing we all want is to be heard. We want our
Yeah,
music out there, you
yeah.
know. But yeah, I get a kick every now and then. I'll send my producer buddy John Kashan a note. It's like, I'm huge in Hamburg this week. Go figure. Go
Yeah.
figure.
I
Yeah,
mean, I can only imagine that some person, found some DJ, found the record somehow and is playing it and it's recording as
yeah.
it spins, which is fine. I mean,
Uh,
that's,
that's
you know,
great. You know what intrigues me? I'm curious if you've had this experience.
yeah,
I knew on my album that I was pretty sure The Shadows of Paris was going to be sort of if I did a single, and we didn't approach it like that, but if there were a hit single on the album, it'd be The Shadows of Paris. It was sort of the gem performance, I thought. But I also know that can be very, very subjective. It's just
yes.
whatever. Boy, that's the tune that always pops on these Spotify numbers and
Uh-huh.
Apple numbers. It's like, I'll get, usually there's something like three tunes got some streams that week, and it might be Make Me Memories and For All We Know, and they'll each have like two, and then they're like 27 listens to Shadows of Paris. Like, that tune is speaking to people, and I'm intrigued by seeing it pop like that every time.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so I do so many things that if I take on a little project, I don't want to kill myself over it. I want
Yeah,
to do it and put it out. I feel that's a little more valuable for me rather
yeah,
than just focusing on this one thing and just working on only that. But so singles, I think during the pandemic, I think I made four singles and I made iMovies and I found free,
yeah,
photos and videos and I really enjoyed the process a lot.
yeah,
And I know that there's more kind of music business things to do for
yeah,
singles, but um, I still want to go back to taking some songs and doing that again.
yeah.
I think the most time really is to find pictures that go with the song. That's
Hmm.
actually can
Hmm.
take a lot of time. Once you have the pictures and then you start, editing and putting it together, it's fun work,
It is fun. It is
and then you
very,
just
very
put
fun.
it out, and it's like, okay, um, but there is some music business type of um, actions that you can do, and people do them. But at this point, for something like that myself, if I had the time, I have, right now I'm working on one project that's taking up a lot of time,
Yeah,
um but I would like to get back to doing that. I'd like to put out singles
yeah.
because people will take time to hear one song.
Yeah, you're hitting a nerve for me because I've been working to get a single out since the album came out. I did this in 2021, and I keep running into licensing issues. So when the Drummer Loves Ballads came out in 2021, I was working with a publicist named Tom Estee, and he said I can get some. There's some TV stations that are local news TV stations that are using Christmas music videos as bumpers here and there. And if you had something for Christmas, I can pitch it out. And
Mhm.
I didn't, but I'm like, I've got an idea for one. And so we did a live video shoot, and I put together a piece I called The Dreams and Drums of Christmas. And one of the devices in the Drummer Loves Ballads is the occasional voiceover interlude. So the album opens with me telling a story, and there's two or three other interludes and a closing interlude on the album, spoken word interludes. So I created the spoken word voiceover on top of the quartet playing Dream, and talks about my dream of drums from the time I was a little kid, and
I saw that actually, yeah.
how the dreams came true.
Right.
And then and I tell a little story about the first ballad I ever played was White Christmas with my mom at the piano. And the silver sparkle snare drum I learned on, and the white brushes mom bought for me. And so with a new pair of white brushes and that same old silver sparkle snare drum, Merry Christmas to all who dream. And so this was the little story and voiceover. And we went from Dream, the Johnny Mercer tune, to White Christmas.
Yeah.
And I got the rights. I got a sync license for the video. No problem. Video's on YouTube. It's got nearly 1,000 views, I think now. I've been very pleased, and I send it out every Christmas. Well, I wanted to take the audio track and release it as a Christmas single. And the medley rights are insane. I have off and on for 4 years been trying to get the rights. And there was this Music Modernization Act, and the publishers are all fighting over who gets what share of medley. And I don't know if others are dealing with this, but I've been tearing my hair out. I just went back to the licensing agency about a month ago saying, I'm going to take another run at this. Can you see if things have changed? And Cathy, it's insane. The issue was the split. And I'm like, you go back to the publishers and you tell them, I'm willing to pay them each 100%, like it was all just their tune. I'm like, I would really like to do this. I will throw money at them. No, couldn't get it approved. So I've got a single that's been waiting in the wings for 4 years that I can't get out. But if I were to do one, I'd like to get that out there.
That is just such a headache. It's just, that kind of stuff is hard.
So you've run into that, right? I mean,
all kinds of stuff like that. And it makes me not want to move ahead.
Well, exactly. I mean, and I love medleys for whatever reason. And on the Drummer Loves Ballads, I had a vision for getting into the Shadows of Paris with, believe it or not, an excerpt from the Brahms Third Movement, Third Symphony, which I'm a huge fan of. And somewhere along the line, I realized like harmonically these work together and the mood is interesting. And I'd like to go from this orchestral Brahms introduction right into Shadows of Paris. Could not get the licensing. So we recorded them separately, and there is like a 1 second break between the tracks. Experientially, if you listen to them in sequence, it's more or less the vision I had. Not quite, but close. And then, I wouldn't learn my lesson. Came up with this medley idea for Christmas. And medleys are just a bitch, pardon the expression, to get licensing for.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew other things, but...
Yeah, I mean, at least that's my experience. I mean, look, the recording and licensing and distributing thing, that's still fairly new to me, so I may be an idiot and just doing something wrong. But
well, no, I'm sure you're not. It's just what you come across and what presents itself to you in your forward motion, right? I mean, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't think ahead about that stuff so much. I mean, a little bit maybe, but you don't know what it is until you get there.
Well, and I do believe in, don't worry about the how until you've got a strong what. It's like, this will be cool. I'm a believer in this, so let's take this forward and figure it out. Sometimes you can't figure it out, though.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, Mark Baldrich. Yeah, he's digging the discussion.
Oh, good.
Yeah. What is your feeling about Spotify?
Well, I'll cut to the bottom line, which is I'm wrestling internally with feeling like I'd like to get off it, but then not quite being willing to give up getting my music heard. That's the essential insight of jazz radio lists. People want to be heard. For me, it comes down to a couple things. One is, what is it we make? About 1/3 of a cent per stream, maybe. I mean, I do think that the
oh, it's not even that.
Yeah, I think
0.0003.
Yeah, it's really
it's not even a third.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's boy, I got to collect my thoughts on the fly here because I've thought about this, but I haven't really articulated it. I do think, I don't know if you follow a critic named Ted Gioia, Gioia. He's a wonderful writer about technology, music, culture, the arts. Fabulous Substack. Big fan of him. He comes out of a background both as a jazz pianist and a business consulting career. Mm-hmm. And he's written a lot about the fact that the music industry is ceding control to technology firms, and that music is just this commodity and not necessarily an art form in the eyes of those who have created the technology to propagate it. And I think Spotify is a technology that they've flirted with using AI generated music, so there's no artist to pay whatsoever and these sorts of things. And I just don't like that artistically, culturally, creatively. I'm not depending on my art or creativity to make a living because I have a separate career that puts me in a very fortunate, privileged position to be able to have some discretionary money I can use to further my artistic pursuits, but without relying on them being profitable. And believe me, this is not profitable. But it still bothers me that this thing exists that is essentially taking the livelihood, the lifeblood of the artistic community, and not respecting it, not dealing with it in a way that reinvests into that world. I'm not being very articulate, but I'm fundamentally very concerned about the mechanism. And then there are some things that, and I don't want to get into political conversations with an audience with whom we have a shared love of jazz, and I don't want to get divided on other topics. But I am very concerned about large corporations who throw their financial weight against social political causes that I don't agree with. And I'll leave it at that.
Yep, gotcha. So yeah, I mean, basically, you and me and a lot of other people feel that way about Spotify. The only way that I can feel okay about it, because it's wrong. It's
Yeah.
ethically wrong.
Yeah.
And there's just no two ways about it. It's wrong. But it's almost like I'm not actually coming out of pocket to do it, but I'm basically paying them for advertising.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
because people can go on Spotify and pull my name up and listen, or come across me somehow, or whatever. The lists, that kind of, I guess it somewhat annoys me, the lists, because
Oh, their playlists?
yeah, because
Yeah.
you have to know somebody, or
Yeah.
it's not this kind of knowing. It's
Right.
it's some other kind of knowing. You have to, and it's not easy to get on lists. So
Well,
it's a little weird.
you're absolutely right. So, yeah, I'll share a couple follow-up thoughts. I'll start with the last comment you made. So, the vocalist on The Shadows of Paris on my album. So, yeah, I'll share a couple follow-up thoughts. Is that me or you? So, the vocalist on The Shadows of Paris. Sorry, I was getting a double audio.
No, I know. That was my
Oh.
fault, because
Oh,
Mark
okay.
said he couldn't hear me and I wanted to comment. So sorry.
Oh, no problem. So I was just going to mention, so the young woman who sang on The Shadows of Paris is a woman named Lucy Winans, and I'd love to plug her because I'm her biggest fan. Her last name is spelled Wijnands. It looks like Wijnands, but it's Winans. It's a Dutch last name.
Okay.
She's the daughter of a childhood friend of mine, and she does a beautiful job on the album, and she has a wonderful start to a career as a jazz singer. She's touring Europe right now. But she is she's still in her 20s, and she's of a generation. She was a classmate of Samara Joy's at Sudi Purchase in New York, for example. So that generation of young up-and-coming musicians, I think, have a more inherent understanding and instinct towards TikTok and streaming jazz and getting on playlists and digital marketing. I'm 61 years old. I've worked in that space in my day career here and there, and I'm not a newbie at it. but I don't have the same, I'm not a digital native, as people say, And candidly, Kathy, I'm also just not that interested in trying to crack the code at this point in my development. And I have other things that I'm doing. And, not all of us are going to be old dogs with new tricks.
Yeah.
Some of us will just hang on to some of those tricks. So I think that next generation of musicians has a bigger burden because it's all on them now. The DIY musician that I mentioned earlier, they have to pitch out their own music to radio stations for the most part, and they do their own production and their own mixing and their own mastering and their own promotion. And Lucy's booking her own tours and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't have the energy for that. So, for that generation, I'm kind of a mind, God bless you. And if you can figure out the Spotify playlist thing, go for it. It's not on my radar. I'm not going to make that effort because I won't. But then the second thought you spur on, you talked about, essentially paying for free advertising. And we keep going back to this idea of we all want our music to be heard. The way I've kind of reconciled myself in this sort of liminal space where I'm still sort of debating it, but by default, I've kind of decided to leave my music there, has to do with a decision I made many, many, many years ago when I was thinking about what is my personal mission in life. And what I came down to is I am here to and want to be a part of creating or participating in moments of beauty. That's where my joy comes from. That's where my creative urges are focused. That's where I find meaning. And define beauty how you will. Beauty is where you find it. I didn't expect my album to break even. I didn't expect to become famous. I didn't expect to get a label deal. And of course, none of those things have happened, nor would they, right? But I have had such extraordinary joy throughout my life as a musician, as somebody immersed in music. It has brought me so much incredible joy that if there's any little chance that I can throw a pebble into the ocean of the universe of something back to share with others, that's fulfilling my desire to create or be a part of moments of beauty. And if I pull it back in and it's not heard, then I feel like I'm sort of truncating my promise to myself to try and put something out into the universe to say thank you for what it brought me. I'm not sure if that makes sense or if it sounds a little touchy-feely, but I feel like be cutting off my nose to spite my face. The music exists. It's on there. If somebody in Kuala Lumpur enjoys that track, nice. I'm glad.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I have to balance, you probably do too. I have to balance as you put it in the beginning of the conversation, I think you used the word commitment or some other word to put it out. Right?
Oh, share with conviction. Yeah.
Conviction, yeah. So I have to balance that with what actually happens. Like if I have a gig and 15 people show instead of 40, how am I going to balance that in myself? Am I going to stop singing?
Right.
Or, and it kind of throws back to when I was young, coming up here. And like I had one friend who did stop singing because she hated the business. She couldn't stand the bad club owners. And I was damned if I was going to stop singing because of stupid club owners.
Right.
I'm going to sing. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to sing because I want to do it. I want to be out there. I want to create with musicians. And so that actually led to this concept that I was always working and which kind of wasn't true, but I was always there and putting out whatever I was doing.
Yeah.
So, so there's this balance of, on the side of, so there's care and don't care, right? And on the balance of don't care, within that and all the layers of that, there's a lot in there. There's my spiritual concept of what actually life is, which I won't go into, but sometime you and I will have a
Yeah.
private conversation about that. But, and so caring, I don't want to, I'd rather not pretend that it doesn't matter. So, so that's why I have the care part in there
Hmm.
in my
Yeah.
concept. So I do care, but I also don't care
Yeah.
because this is or I care about the creative, or there's all those different
Hmm.
levels on this side.
Yeah, I understand.
So you probably have that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually sort of the constant balancing act of how we observe, participate, respond to the world every day.
Yeah.
We have to choose what we care about and what we're going to have to consciously say, maybe I can't afford to care about that. I mean, I struggle with being informed, being aware, being knowledgeable, making smart decisions about the environment in which I live, and not letting it become a constant source of outrage to me. If you care in a way that's constantly upsetting, that's self-destructive. And so, sometimes you have to make decisions like, I'm going to sort of withdraw from participating in this particular thing or whatever, because I don't want to destroy my psyche, because I don't want to spike my blood pressure. I don't want to have a stroke, or whatever the case may be. For me anyway, I say this as if it's a truism, but yeah, I deal with the care, don't care, and I'm constantly working to balance it so that I am engaged, but also not destroying myself.
Yeah, yeah. um, I have my attention on the fact you have to leave a little early.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I had a call scheduled that I need to keep. There, one thing we haven't gotten to yet, if I can mention, is one of the things I'm fascinated by in this world of musicians, but life in general, is how little things lead to the next thing. And we meet this player on a gig, and this opportunity creates. When I was playing Casuals in Kansas City in 1984, and I was so happy that Rod Fleeman would show up on the gig. At that point, there was no concept that I'm going to have an album 40 years later or whatever. But then when I did, he's the person I wanted to call for this or that. And, just the interconnectedness of experiences and the domino effect of our lives always sort of amazes me. And one little fairly recent sort of domino effect, we were talking about my interviewing Marilyn York for Easy Jazz Spotlight, because they had done an interview with me. Well, the next outcome of that was Corey, the founder of Easy Jazz FM, contacts me and says, you've got a good voice for radio, and I'm expanding the radio shows. Would you want to be a radio show host?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, I just entertain myself with the fascination of life unfolding. I'm a kid in Kansas City in '81 playing a jam session. Have this weird experience, leads to this idea. 40 years later, record an album called The Drummer Loves Ballads. I get interviewed on a program because of the album. And I get asked to interview others because they thought I was a decent guest. And then they say, hey, do you want to host a jazz show? And it's crazy to think about that kid in '81 doing that jam session and it leading somehow to now I'm the host of a streaming jazz show on Easy Jazz FM. So last year I was the host of a show called The A-List with JOHN ARMATO. Really loved doing it. It was very gratifying. I concepted and programmed the whole show. They were themed. I would do shows like the music of espionage and spy movies and noir. I did a show on voices without words. It was all about different kinds of vocalization and scat singing and this sort of thing. I just loved it. They were very intensive to do. Each show, 1 hour show, was about 10 hours of prep and writing and production for me. And at the same time, the producer had 3 other hosted jazz shows, and it was becoming a little bit expensive for him. So those came to an end, but then he came back to me this year and said, got a different format. How about if I do a 2-hour show and you be the announcer, you be the host, but I'll script it and I'll do the programming, so it'll be a lot less time intensive for you. So that's where Saturday Night Jazz with John Armato came from. And we've been doing that since February. And it's on every Saturday, 6 o'clock Pacific on Easy Jazz FM. And so this is just a little plug. I hope people will check it out on a Saturday night. Just go to Easy Jazz FM. You can listen on their app or on the web, or if you've got a smart device, you can just ask it to play Easy Jazz FM. But I'm having such a good time, Cathy, engaging in my love of music in this whole other different capacity, and just hosting the music for listeners and occasionally telling the story of a personal connection to the artist or the tune or whatever. But anyway, I do hope people check it out. We're working on a Christmas show that I'm excited about.
What time is it on every Saturday?
6 p.m. Pacific on Easy Jazz FM, and you can go to just easyjazzfm.com and check out the show lineup. There's a Sunday night jazz program, and those are 2 hosted shows. But then throughout the week, it's a 24/7 just streaming jazz platform. So lots of good music. The focus is on, the tagline is the relaxed and relaxing side of jazz. So it's about the mellow, and for a drummer who loves ballads, it's my kind of show.
That's great. I love it. That's really nice. Yeah. Well, I certainly, I can relate to that. I have a bunch of CDs, but a lot of them are like that because, well, I have a lot of duo CDs.
Yeah.
And some of my other CDs have that flow, that kind of easy, calm flow to it. So
Yeah.
I can relate to that. Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of duos, I'll translate that into duets. One of the thrills of the album was I sort of decided to live large and take a chance here. Got Houston Person and Warren Vichet to agree to do a duet on the album. And when I lived in New York, I had done a couple gigs, more casuals than, they were like private party kinds of things with Warren Vichet. And man, I just love his sound, and he was a delight to play with and a sweetheart of a guy. And then I'd seen Houston Person live, like the Iridium and some places I used to go to in New York. And Ann Phillips, who is a New York presence on the jazz scene, and she's a former demo composer, arranger, producer in the sort of 70s studio scene in New York, and has a wonderful album out from 1959 called Born to Be Blue. That's an incredible album. Anyway, she became a good friend in New York and has connected me to both of them, and called me one day. She said, yeah, they said yes, they'll record. So, I don't know. Kid in Kansas City is pretty happy with the way things turned out.
That's great. Well, I'm going to let you go because it's 10 till. Thank you very much. It was really a fun conversation.
Oh,
I really enjoyed it.
Cathy, thank you. It was. I'm flattered you invited me on. It was an honor and a privilege, and I ate it up. I loved our conversation. Thank you for this.
I'm going to tell people a few things. If you want to go, you can, because I don't want you necessarily.
I'm gonna hang on until you shut it down. I've got a couple minutes to spare, but thank you again. I've been delighted to be a part of it.
Thank you, John Armato. The drummer loves ballads.
That's really yes, he cool.
Does. Okay, so this week, normally I have just at this moment in time. I have another person on who's one of my favorite horn players in LA. He has a really beautiful tenor tone, just gorgeous. His name is Keith Fidmont, and he's really done a lot. So anyway, I'm gonna interview him on this Friday, 12 to 3, and actually he's number 650. So you're 640.
Amazing! You are prolific, Cathy. That's amazing. Holy cow!
Yeah, it's amazing. So that, and of course, for those of you who come to my Saturday gig in Santa Monica, the one that John came to and we hooked up again, I'm I'm not 100% sure I'll be there this Saturday because they might have some really big deal where they're renting out the whole restaurant. So just check with me on that if you are planning on going down. But this Saturday night is the first night, kind of the I've booked some acts in this place before, but my friend Sydney Jacobs and I have taken over a space that I used to book before the pandemic called, it's in a restaurant behind Disney Hall called Olac.
Oh, nice.
The club used to be called Bar Fedora, but now it's called Birds of a Feather Jazz Lounge. And so Sydney and I have poured in a lot of effort and pulled like fine-tuned it. It's really a really nice performance space. And so this Saturday is going to be the first of our together concerts, and it's a very talented bass player, composer, band leader named Marlon Martinez. He's really a quality guy. So he's going to be performing there this Saturday night. It's an early gig for those of you who care about that. You know, the restaurant closes at 9, so the show is before that. But anyway, if you guys are interested, it's Birds of a Feather jazzlounge.com, and you can find that information on there. And then Keith Fidmont on Friday. So I'm looking forward to all that.
What great stuff you have going on. That's terrific. I saw the new promos on Facebook for the new club. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. I hope people will pay me a visit on the drummerlovesballads.com or jazzradiolists.com or Saturday Night Jazz with John Armato on Easy Jazz FM. And thank you again, Cathy. This is a great day. I appreciate it.
John. Have
All
a
right.
great
Well,
day.
take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody. One more thing. Oh yeah, November 24th, Monday, I'm having like a little special noontime hang that I put together. It's about 15 minutes from the first 8 people that I had on the noontime hang back in March of 2020. I'd like to try and do that every now and then because I just think it's pretty cool. So that's next Monday. But this week, Friday, come back